Hey, Busy just sent you the request.
Yo, man.
busyworksbeats.com. Welcome. Good to talk to you. Busy, how you doing?
Chilling, man. Chilling. I'm fresh off of 3 hours of sleep, so forgive my eyes going everywhere. But how you feeling, man?
We saw you were doing studio building last night. A lot of studio building. Tons of synths, tons of everything. How late you end up staying up for all that stuff?
Indeed, man. It was the first time I had to sleep in the studio. I stayed up till I think it was 7 a.m. Eastern time. So I was just doing my thing. But I see you got the LED lights going around the. How long is that? What do you call it? That LED strip?
Oh yeah, I think it's like a 25 footer. It's good enough.
25.
It's just good enough. I'm not at your stage yet. We're not building, like $100,000 studios. We're keeping it moderate, low key. We got a couple locations, couple different spots, but toning it back. Not yet. Not yet.
Indeed,
Not quite yet there.
indeed, man. Yeah, you guys pop up on the stream like all the time. And then there's always like a fresh new sound coming from your. Now, can you explain to me who's all involved and like how's it structured? Because for the longest time, I didn't understand it.
No, absolutely. It's really confusing because we've been really inspired by, how Kanye's been really criticizing the current structure of like the music industry and how like artists don't have rights and artists don't have the freedom to do X, Y, and Z. So we kind of tried to model our system based on the idea of having internal and external artists, artists that associate themselves directly to the label by just paying for services, and artists that we actually sign and giving them the freedom to decide whether or not which one they want to be.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's kind of, we're trying to do it a little bit differently than how most people have done it. And we still have the same structure of a label. We have like multiple producers, multiple engineers that will sign, and we'll either pay for studio time directly from them or pay for a studio or in-house it, however we do it. But then we'll also have artists that just pay for services, and they're not even a part of the label. They'll just be like, I want to have this song mixed down. Okay, here's this mix. We'll give it to you for $35. Blah blah blah. There's your mix back, and we'll get our engineers to do that sort of thing. So we're really just trying to structure it a little bit differently. We have the internal structure of like your standard Atlantic Records, obviously scaled down, not as many people, but we have all those roles filled. But then we also have the outreach branch that doesn't have the same abilities that someone who would be internal have in the label.
Oh, okay. So like a tiered. Um, what's a good analogy? It's almost
Hierarchy,
like
yeah,
you said a hierarchy.
a hierarchical label or something like
Hmm. A hierarchical label. You just coined your own word. Hold on
that.
one sec. Hierarchical label. Give me one sec here.
Yeah.
But yeah, just mouthwash. It makes your mouth water so much. Goodness. But yeah, that's really interesting because that's how you can grow. Um, that's an interesting way to grow. You can use your customers to grow your internal business. I'd never even thought of it that way.
Well, I mean, I feel like you've thought about it a lot, so that's really saying something. I really appreciate that. Yeah. So
Mhm.
I was wondering, I had a question for you. Like we are just spinning up our website. We're trying to like grow online, and I know you have like a ton of videos about that sort of stuff and growing and whatnot. So I just wanted you to share a little knowledge with like us, and then with some of the people online. Like, what are your like kind of go-to starting steps of like getting attention to your website and getting attention to your like platforms and whatnot?
Mhm. Yeah, quick philosophy, I guess, is just understanding everything as groups. And have you ever, okay, so what era did you come up in? Like, did you see when Drake became famous?
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. That's when I first tuned in. So that's
Yeah,
the scene I understand the most. Yeah.
indeed. So Drake, well, how did he become famous? Who put him on?
Well, it wasn't it originally like it was Wayne, right? It was Wayne growing up with it was him getting signed to Young Money. It was that whole movement of all those artists together, Nicki, Wayne, Tyga. They all kind of came collaboratively together, right?
From Lil Wayne, right? And then who did Lil Wayne come from?
He was from what Bird wasn't Birdman was put him under his wing, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah.
And then how did Birdman get on?
See, now you're going too deep for me. You gotta let me know.
Birdman was in the streets. Let's say I'm not going to say what he did because I don't know for sure, but from the stories we hear, he earned his stripes, you know, maybe through the illicit market of things. Let's say it that way.
Sure, sure.
And he had earned. So my point is, in other cultures, like specifically royal cultures, with a queen or a king, they have a ceremony called knighting. Have you heard of that before?
Yeah, absolutely.
And what they'll do is they'll place the sword on somebody's shoulder, and then they bow, and they take the oath and
Uh-huh.
everything. And what they're doing is publicly accepting the trust from the person who has the status. And so we do the same exact thing in hip hop. So I don't know if you've caught this or not, but like whenever and shout out to the chat. I can't really read who's joining. Birdman. Oh, I thought they said Birdman. Never mind. I read that wrong. But they, in hip hop, they do the same type of thing. They don't put a sword on your shoulder, but they give you a new chain.
Mm.
And what that symbolizes is the trust that somebody's built up is being passed or duplicated over to somebody else. And now you have two times the trust. So my point in saying all this is it's a delineation from, there's a father-son structure. There's like a, father,
That goes back
son.
decades, decades, and decades, like even beyond music. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, even in the Bible, there's a book called Kings, and the whole book just describes how a king became a king from the past kings.
Hmm.
So, and it's like books and books long. And
Yeah.
my point is that it's a lineage, and somebody has to be the initial spark of a lineage to carry on that status. And so, my point is, when you're starting a business, you have to latch on to something that already has that status or the captive audience. So in our world, we're going to call it a keyword. Now it sounds simple, but when I think of how do you Rankin
Rank,
records?
Rankine. Yeah, yeah.
Rankine. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. See, I said it wrong. I was saying Rankin the whole time.
You're good.
When I think of that, what are the two words that you want associated, to your brand? When I say Rankine.
Rank. I hear rank instantly. That's the one, like rank, all that sort of stuff. Military hierarchy. It all kind of ties in. I see. That's what I hear when I hear it. First of all, and then temperature. Rankine is the unit for temperature. That's like the analogous to Kelvin for like metric units. I'm an
Hmm.
engineer, so I know all that boring stuff. But yeah, the
Okay, see.
things that come to my head at least.
Okay, I only know Kelvin. Zero Kelvin is when zero movement, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, I didn't know about the other things. Thanks for putting me on. And my point is, we want people to associate two words with us. Our brain is like Google. So if I say ice cream, what do you think?
I think sugary sweets. I think Ben and Jerry's. I'm going over there. I'm thinking, that sort of thing. Cold
Right,
stuff. Yeah.
right. Notice how you pause before you could think of that third thing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so our the way our neurons are set up, our brain trees, they're literally trees.
Mm-hmm.
And when I say a word, it's like a Google search. And our brain goes in, it takes that word, it goes to our brain to find the tree that has those associations. So when you say ice cream, or when I say ice cream, it goes ding, ding, ding. Okay, search ice cream. Boom. The first point of our neural pathway that's deviating off of the neural cell, the
Yeah.
neuron, is going to be, I forgot what you said, sugary sweet.
Yeah. Sugary sweet. That sort of thing. Ben and
Sugar.
Jerry's the brand association with it too.
And another branch will be Ben and Jerry's.
Mm-hmm.
So you said sugary sweet, Ben and Jerry's. Then you pause for a little bit because you have to literally go into your deep recesses to find the other trees because it's not a built-in neural pathway. So our brain works with the path of least resistance, and we carve out these neural pathways over and over and over again because that's how we easily access stuff.
Yeah.
And it took a while because you had to go down a path you never really go down to find that third and fourth and fifth and sixth. So my point in saying all this is that we have to associate with a keyword, and that's what's going to drive that traffic of thought to find us. People have to find us, unless you're going to do, the typical status passing on,
Yeah.
meaning coming from someone else who's already put on. We have to go the search route because there's no other way people can find us.
Mm-hmm.
And
That
a
was a
quick
long
little,
time for you then, right? Because you had to essentially make this key word that kind of resonated with your online structure, right? Like all the stuff that you built from, the years and years of being in the YouTube producer community, from growing from that to, you know, expanding to your websites, your own plugins, your own X, Y, and Z, that you had to associate your brand with online tutorials, training, and music. Like somehow, I don't know what the keyword would be, but there's a lot of them that come back to you. Like I think over of all producers online, the most that they start with, maybe not stay with, but start with is always you. Like I started with you when I first was getting involved with this. And I think that's a lot of people. So when you're saying like build that familiarity, you're talking more about like find your niche and then kind of in that niche develop a brand recognition that associates to a singular like word or a singular set of I guess you could say like a singular set of ideas that comes back to you. Is that kind of what you're going in on there?
Hmm. Exactly, and that's really advanced. And so most people tell you to focus on a niche, but there's a it's called a market cap to a niche. And I don't want people to stay in the niche. It's cool to start with a niche and become the authority figure, but once you become the authority figure, it's time to move up. And so this is what I meant when I told the story about Birdman being in the street and earning his respect. He had to go from the bottom layer of the pyramid to the top, and then he passed the top portion of the pyramid to Lil Wayne, and the top to Drake, and the top. So they didn't have to constantly build up from niches
Uh-huh.
and conquer the and be the authority of the space. So I left out a piece of that analogy, and that's my fault. So going back a little bit, these neural pathways, you know, our brain works on the path of least resistance. So if I say FL Studio, who pops up in your brain? And let's put it this way: people tend to give up because they think that one person is the sole person for a keyword. But you have to remember that everybody's brain is an individual Google. So when I said ice cream to you, you said sweet, sugary, and Ben and Jerry's. For
Mm-hmm.
me, I didn't have what are called impressions of Ben and Jerry on my subconscious mind. So I didn't have that image to associate to Ben and Jerry's. I had something called Dairy Queen and then vanilla because I ordered vanilla the most. So I had the most impressions on my subconscious mind. And the people, their brain, their results that they pull up are based on the impressions of images. And that's how, everybody's brain pulls up different results. So if I, again, as a quick, analysis, if I say ice cream to you, you said sugary sweet, and then you said Ben and Jerry's. To me, I've never even seen a Ben and Jerry's in my area until like a year ago. And then if you say ice cream to me, I say Dairy Queen, which is a whole different brand because they're in my location,
Yeah.
and I've physically seen them thousands of times. And then I said, what was the other one? And vanilla because that's the flavor we usually get advertised. And so I don't want people to give up thinking that okay, busyworksbeats dominates a keyword. You just have to be the first in somebody's mind. Do you know Grant Cardone?
Say again.
Do you know Grant Cardone?
No, I actually don't. No, I haven't heard that name.
Okay, he's the 10x rule guy. He wrote a book called "If You're Not First, You're Last,"
Oh,
and
okay.
it's
I'll take a look at that. I like
yeah,
that. Ricky
he's just
Bobby.
Ricky Bobby. Yeah, oh yeah, yep, that's exactly it. And it's off that principle that if I say a word, you need to be first in somebody's mind, or you're literally last because people have to struggle to pull up the rest of those results. And so this all ties back to how people get traffic. So you need to find a keyword that has everybody's interest that is already top of the pyramid. You don't want to find a niche keyword because you're going to have a market cap and you're going to be struggling for years and years and years if you don't elevate. There has to be a top keyword, and then you work down to they're called long tail keywords. So like if it's FL Studio, you might do FL Studio tutorial or FL Studio cookup. There's different long tail keywords for it. So those are the bottom rungs of the pyramid. At the top, it's FL Studio. And you
Okay.
want to work your way up by building authority for each sub keyword. Does that make sense?
No, I'm following completely. That makes perfect sense. So it's like you can't get stuck in a niche because that's going to limit your growth. It's going to limit like where you can go from there. It's like you have to point for the highest point and build association across horizontally and vertically. Like, grow up the pyramid so that when you're at the top, like when FL Studio, BusyWorks is the first thing that always comes up, right? That's the type of brand association that you're going in on, and it makes perfect sense. So I'm thinking like in terms of how can a new brand, like for example us, like how can we kind of fit into our own particular spot where if there is only one person at top, like there's no chance like right now that, like, for example, I know you and Curtis go back and forth with like online tutorials and whatnot and all the time. So like when FL Studio comes up, Curtis and Game are battling for the spot at number one. It's like there's the hierarchy goes back and forth. Like, how does somebody, you know, that's new to this and trying to carve out their own movements, how do they even find a space in this? Like through brand association, through, you know, what you're saying about father son, like that whole idea, like how did that even start for somebody that's new? You know, that's the part where it's like, I don't even expect you to have an answer, but that's something that everyone needs to think about, is where can they slide in and create their own hierarchy in which they are the brand that's most affiliated to the top element, you know?
Mm-hmm.
It's very complex.
Yeah, I'll say three different approaches. So one is what we just spoke about, which is starting with the longer tail keywords first and dominate those niches. Because when you're at the top for like FL Studio, I'm a person who won't cover something so microscopic because my whole audience doesn't care. So I'll leave. It's like you know, a CEO of McDonald's. He doesn't want to spend all his time cooking cheeseburgers because he can't do the higher up stuff. So it's a lower value task. So people will naturally, who are at the top, give up all those lower value tasks. And it just has to be somebody who's willing to do all those dirty tasks, or like get their hands dirty and do all the tasks. So that's one, is simply covering the long tail keywords and then reestablishing authority, because now you have the culture. Because again, it's a search based economy. And the way you kind of earn respect in this place is by the impressions you have on somebody's mind. How do you establish yourself as a neuronal response when somebody thinks of a word? And that's how you reconquer. For example, I'll put my own business as the example. So I'm building software. I'm not the first company to build software, you know, software plugins. So I'm starting from ground zero. And the question is, how do I compete against these huge companies like Spectrasonics, REFX Nexus,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, all the big boys. And I have to first have you know, a niche enough product, which it's focused on trap, hip hop, and lo-fi. So that audience is super niche. Rarely do they have plugins built specifically for them. So that's my like way to get in the door.
And you kind of like took the inspiration from a lot of them. Like you were like, hey, they're doing this good, I can do this even better, and scale it down to a degree where all these, you know, this community can use it directly. Like, for example, like I remember watching a couple of your videos a while back about you saying that I like I like the design of Contact's side library feature, and I like the front end of Netflix. Like I really like how they have structured how they did that. So you kind of combined your in your process of releasing, you know, your plugin that was designed to take those elements and then polish them and make them even better, and understanding how important like looking at this plugin is and how that affects your inspiration. All that goes into the same thing, and how you kind of took that. And I think that's exactly what you're getting into, and I really like it. It's a really good point. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and you kind of mapped it out. Subconsciously, I said, why try to refigure out the wheel? I said, people already know Nexus. They already know it, and they already love it. That's like a keyword, but it's not a keyword in this case, and it's an association of joy. And so that's the pinnacle, is Spectrasonics, Omnisphere, Contact, Nexus. I said, let me create something that's associated to those things so that people apply it to my thing. So I'm pulling that attention, that desire to my product naturally from the way it's designed. And this is why it goes so deep. It's because the subconscious mind works off of images. That's the only thing the subconscious mind understands. So when you parallel an image that's been impressed on somebody over and over and over, they have a lot more trust for that thing. And you get to grab that trust, just like being knighted. It's just not with their permission. So now I'm absorbing all their trust without them having to physically say, here's the person we endorse. And that's what I mean by we have to focus on the big bucket thing and start at the bottom, but we're absorbing whatever is at the top. So like the way our economy works is, it's really the money we're using is recycled from somebody way at the top. We're not really the ones, like we're just passing the money around. We're not creating it technically from scratch. But without that whole conversation, going back to the design of the plugin and the associations, I had a mini point in there. Oh, what was the main question? The three approaches.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the first one is just the word. Sorry, I go on tangents. The first one
No.
is the word association. That's key. You know, that's kind of online, period. Instagram is not the same way because you don't search on Instagram. It's interruption based. It's not search based. And so this platform is solely based on social status. And the only way you can really get it is if you collab with the verticals or collab with people who have more leverage. You leverage a relationship with somebody with a greater audience than you. That's really how you grow on Instagram. YouTube is search based, so you don't have to necessarily do that. You can start from the ground up, like we said, to build that authority. Facebook is not search based. So you have to do things that, excuse me, interrupt folks to get in front of them. Now, I'm assuming that you're not going to run ads your audience is not going to run ads. So we're going to take that out of the equation. And your question was just how do you get to the top?
Yeah, well, how do you build your own or your own lane or separate structure to be at the top of something? You know, that's the biggest thing that someone starting kind of has in mind.
Mm-hmm. So those two. So you got the again building from the bottom of the pyramid up using long tail keywords. That's one. Then you got leveraging other people's audiences. I call this the leech method. So you have to find, like for example, what you're doing today. You're leveraging my audience, which is a good thing because we get to have a general conversation that we were going to have anyway. But you get to leverage, people's attention in this moment towards yourself. So that's what people have to do to grow. That's the parable of the net. So I have two hands. One's holding the phone, but if I had a fishing rod, I throw it out and I catch one fish at a time because it's just one line. But if I use the same exact two hands and throw out a huge net and I pull the net in, now I have 3,000 fish with the same two hands. And that's what leveraging is. A lever is something you use to where a weaker source can lift up a heavier source using, all the physics behind levers and all that.
I got that part at least.
That's hilarious. So like when you use a wrench, like can you imagine trying to screw it in with your fingers? Whereas a wrench, it's easily done.
More torque, simple.
More torque. There we go. I forgot all the physics words.
You don't need to know them anymore.
Indeed. And the third process, I would say, let me really think here. But the third process is really just hardcore competition. You have to learn how to, like for example, myself. It's already here. Let me give people rules. When investors invest in new companies, they use, especially private equity, they say, how much is the market cap? If it isn't $1 billion, then they don't even get involved. And the reason they don't get involved, if it isn't 20 billion market value, they don't get involved. And that's because they just assume that out of all their investments, if it's a magical unicorn investment, it'll at least get 5% of the market cap. And 5% of 20 billion, is 1 billion. So they're just looking to get to the billion. That's it. Through law, it's called the law of averages and spread. And so with that same, philosophy, I'm trying to apply to the producer community and your audience as well, artists and everybody else in the music industry what was I getting at with the investment portion? Pick my brain for a second I'm off of 3 hours of sleep. So
I know. Well, you are just getting into how this sort of thing the paradigm you're talking about right now kind of fits into making someone the top of their own hierarchy, whether it be their own lane or whatnot, or whether it's just...
Oh, sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. My brain it stuttered for a big second.
You got it again. Go ahead.
Okay, here's what I was going to say. And the third lane, and forgive me for that, the third lane is when okay. So if a market is very good, it's going to be super competitive because it's very good. If there's a lot of fish in the pond, you're going to see 100 people lined up from left to right trying to catch those fish. But if there's 2 fish in a pond and 100 people are lined up, they're foolish. So that's what most people are doing. They're not going to the ponds with a lot of fish. Mm-hmm. And this is why I brought up the market cap analogy. It's because if I know a market's super competitive, all I want is 5% of the market because that will turn into $1 billion on average. If it's a large market, 20 billion market. And music it was above 20 billion, I think, 2 years ago. Yeah. So if we look back at the stats, I would have to go back to the Statista to look it up. But the market cap of music is way above 20 billion. And this is going up and up and up due to digital and everything else. So we have to, it's going to be competitive. That's the reason it is competitive, is because there's fish there. So like people are hungry, so they're going to go to where fish are. And I think people just tend to forget about the competition factor when they're trying to rise up. You have to.
That's a good point. That brings me to I wanted to ask you a question about this. So we are releasing a label album here over the next, like, we're releasing a two-parter. It's going to be on the 4th, and then on the 18th, we're doing like a split. And I was wondering, like, with all these albums dropping of all these big names, we've got Certified Lover Boy coming in like early January, and we've got like tons of other artists dropping. How does a smaller label release an album, a collaborative project with multiple artists that are signed and not signed to the label? How does that find a lane in a market in times like this? It's crazy. That's what I was kind of wanting to get into as well. Like, how does someone promote an album like that? You know, not necessarily just networking and, you know, paying for the Spotify, the Facebook, those sort of ads. But how do you kind of do that organically too?
Let me ask you, did you see the versus battle with Young Jeezy and Gucci Mane?
I saw some of the highlights. I didn't get to watch the whole thing, but I really enjoyed. It was hysterical. It was beautiful. It was the best marketing I've seen in a while. Absolutely.
Right. Now, what was that? Was that them? What was that to you? How do you describe that?
I feel like it was the momentum of the hype that was doing a lot of the marketing. I feel like that was even more of the push, because I didn't get any ads for it. I don't think very many people did. I think it was more people, I think in the collective group that was advertised to, they did a very good job propagating and distributing that information to, whether it be their cliques, friend groups, or whatever it may be, via social media or whatever. I think that was really what held the momentum that grew that whole ordeal.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess my greater point of asking that question is, it was a video for entertainment. It had nothing to do with the music. The music was just there to be there. And my greater point is that in old record deals, a song used to be defined as both the audio and the music video. And so we tend to forget that when we're thinking about music. So back in the day, music videos had to go through distribution companies like MTV, BET, and all the distribution companies. And that was the only way people could find you through that medium, is by putting something in that channel that's of that medium. And so you had to create a music video in order for people to even know the music existed without going to a record store. So the goal is to figure out the channels that you want to touch your audience in, whether it's online social media, whether it's offline. Not a lot of people do offline stuff, so we're not going to get into that. But whether it's live shows type of stuff, or whether it's direct mail, we have to figure out how to translate our message into that channel. So did you take biology, for example? Did you take any bio, or like?
Yeah, I took the first level, those type of methods, yeah.
Right. So the disease of diabetes is when sugar doesn't get accepted into the cell, and the cell needs sugar to exist. It's just that it's refusing the sugar for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. And what I'm getting at is, every cell has a receptor on it, and so the subconscious mind is the inside of the cell. That's what we're trying to influence, is the DNA inside the cell, so we can get that DNA to express into something we want. The cell receptor is the conscious thinking mind. And the marketing message is going to be the stuff in the veins going to that cell. So your marketing message could be sugar, it could be vitamin K, it could be vitamin E. But if the cell doesn't have a receptor for it, it's not going to grab onto it and pull it into the cell. So people have different receptors. Some people have Twitter receptors, some people have Instagram receptors, some people have YouTube receptors. We have to figure out which receptors a lot of people have, and then translate our marketing message to have a key for that receptor, so that it can be pulled into the cell. So
makes perfect sense. It's very difficult though, because you have to find the receptor that in summation grabs the attention of most people, and the one that's most cost effective. Because I mean, we could probably cater to everyone's individual receptors, but how do you do that on a large scale? It's like, that's not economical, and it's not practical. You can't do something like that. So it's like, how do you find a way to slide in and have a strategy that ends up working the best for you, but also resonates the most with people's receptors? It's very, very difficult.
Hmm.
So
Good, good question. Yeah, and I'll say it this way: kidney cells are different from heart cells, are different from brain cells, and so we have to look at the common interests. The reason we call them organs is because they have a common function,
mhm.
and so common interests are going to be those organs that we're targeting. If you want to make a full body, you got to target, you got to segment your organs. So you have to segment your kidney, segment your what other pancreas, your heart, your all the organs. That's your audience. They all have separate pockets of interest. So, for example, everybody in America is an American first.
The chat's going crazy on you, man. Talking about kidney beans.
Make a beat out of organs, kidney
I
beans.
get what you're saying. Keep going.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So at the top, we have America. Then we have religions that separate people. So you have Christian, all the religions. Then you have, the sub packs of
Stack
religion. Our
the
sex,
particular
yeah,
stack of each group.
SECTS. Okay. And then you have morality splits, ethics, we'll call it. And then you have interests like, okay, sports, uh, you know, makeup, all the general interests, and then you have micro interests like FL Studio, all that type of stuff. Then you have micro interests. So it's like FL Studio tutorial. So again, it's that ladder of interest is where we gather people. And so scaling up is about starting with these pockets of micro interest, and then we find that we have all the organs working together. Now we can move up to the greater pocket and spend more money because we've already galvanized people enough to be supportive for the greater thing. So it's really all a pyramid. If we really look at it, here's what I'll say though, is we need to stop thinking of our music as the product because it's not the product. The music is it's a marketing message to get people to do something for the product. So most people don't look at music like a marketing message. It's the frequency that goes into the cell. It's the message. And I think people are trying to it's like you're trying to use the message to sell the message. So what we have to do is become content creators, and you have a whole squad, it seems like. So those are going to be your different keys for different cell receptors. Those are called avatars. You're going to have different avatars for your core message. For example, I'm trying to think of something people have experienced, um, like religion. So did you grow up religious?
Say again.
Did you grow up religious at all?
I did not, but I found religion in the past couple years. So was not originally though.
Okay, well let's just say Christianity.
Sure.
Now everybody doesn't listen to the same preacher.
Yeah, that's factual, of course.
So the preachers are just avatars. They're just different people that we resonate with because we have common interests with that specific leader. I might listen to a black preacher because they're black and they understand being black in America.
Yeah.
I might not listen to the white guy down the street because he has it all good.
Mm.
Even though he's preaching the good word, I'm not going to receive that message because I don't have a receptor for that.
Mm.
So we can have the same exact marketing message, but if the people don't have the receptor for it, it doesn't matter how good the product is, how good anything is. And so with your situation, you have a bunch of avatars, a bunch of ways to get into people's mind, the marketing message. And so looking from the outside in, I don't know anybody's face though. I can't be like, oh, here's their face, here's that person's face. And I can't differentiate. I just know for a long time, to be honest with you, I was confused about who it was and how it worked. And
Oh,
but
you
now
talk
that you
about
made it clear.
our brand in general, just Rankine, you're saying?
Yeah, I didn't know if it was one person or
Yeah,
if it was
yeah,
multiple. I didn't know if it's artist, producer. So
yeah. Hmm.
now that you've made that clear, you know, so what do you put out content?
So yes, yes. So we're actually trying to expand tons of different lanes right now. Um, I was going to kind of get into sort of those questions on you, but we started really as a group that was focused on just getting a collection of internal artists like really popular, kind of trying to wear multiple hats if you weren't an artist, like trying to do some of the management of the A&R, the promotion, the engineering, the producing, all the beat making process get managed by a collection of individuals that would be the board in one way or another. And then we would have the artists that we would sign would be the entities below that would be also responsible for how their music turns out because they're incentivized by how good they do in streams to to remain a part of the label. If they're not selling, then we're not going to keep them on the label. That sort of ordeal. So that was how we started, and now we're trying to hop into, you know, YouTube lane, do some slight tutorials there. We're trying to build across to have a website to sell merchandise and to incentivize other artists to want to sign and join our talent ranks, because we've opened up now 4 studios across the United States. We have one in California. We're trying to open one in South Carolina. We've got a couple in Virginia, and we're just trying to. They're not crazy studios, but they're enough that, you know, that person or the studio host, the session engineer, they will group other artists into it and kind of get some other people involved and kind of expand outwards, kind of like you know, how you're saying, like they're a node in the neural network and they're grabbing other nodes around them, and that's kind of just how we're trying to build. We're trying to expand and grab all these other areas and create kind of like a community of producers and artists and engineers, and kind of have like sort of that top-down management of we're mainly head in Virginia, but we have, you know, locations everywhere. Find a studio location near you, and that's kind of where we're trying to grab and grow in that sort of lane. So yeah.
Hmm. That makes sense, and that's really big, and I like that idea. Me and you think alike, because I started this studio. The climate's a little odd now, but the goal was to bring in people, incentivize them, and have a greater system going to where everybody kind of fuel each other. Now, what is the end product? What are people buying from you? What is the end thing?
Sure. That's a really good point. So this is where a lot of our planning and marketing is going into right now. A lot of our design, structure, future building. We have right now the capabilities and the team to do, you know, the standard beat packs. We have like a beat portion that's being built into our website right now, where you can, you know, buy beats from our site. We have studio services like that can go from custom vocal mixes to of like artists that your style. Like if you want to have a Travis Scott type mix, or if you want to have, you know, your standard Drake mix, or like that sort of sound to it, we can kind of work you in with an engineer and have you, whether it be through like a Zoom call and like sound designing, like what your sound wants to be, and then kind of get you in a studio that's near that area, or help you find the resources to put you in a studio if we're not in that area. So that's kind of where we're trying to get into things, and get people connected and have all those sorts of products. And then that goes on with like the merchandise and all that stuff. We're trying to build that lane and have individual artist merchandise that are artists that are signed, that are internal entities on the label. So
Mm-hmm.
the external we're trying to build, and the internal we're trying to build, and we're figuring out our spots for that.
Gotcha. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And most people, they'll just tell me, you know, streaming is their only product. And it's kind of like YouTube. I wouldn't do all this stuff just for a YouTube stream. You know, you have to have multiple streams. And they say wealthy folks have 7 streams. And what they mean is 7 profit centers. They don't have to be 7 different business entities, but 7 profit centers. 7 ways that this business is making money. You could do paid collabs. You could do mixing services. You could do the streaming income. You could do a physical product or a digital product of some sort. You could do courses. I'm just saying, to courses, you know, it's not for
I'm not
everybody.
doing any courses, man. I'm not sliding in that.
Hilarious. And so I like that. But internally, I'm glad that you have a hierarchy, because there's a book by Michael Gerber called E-Myth. And at the top, you have the business owner. Underneath, you have the managers, which seems like what you have like the commission, right? And then underneath are the technicians, or the people with the skill and the talent. And they all need guidance. It's all a structure. But what was I getting into? Oh, and the internal team needs incentive. So for your audience, you know, and everybody watching, you have to create things that aren't money that you can incentivize with. And you have to know people's motivations. And there's 3 core motivations. There's romance, there's wealth, and there's health. And so you have to figure out, you know, the micro motivations for each person to give them a product within the business. So for example, if I'm trying to demonstrate my mixing services to sell it to somebody, I'll say, hey, artist number 1, you can come in, I'll record your song for absolutely free. You'll walk away with a free song for your catalog. That's their benefit. And then we can double benefit. We could put the song that we just made on our record label or our distribution channels to also give them more promotion and more awareness. So it's a double thing we can have. And
Yeah.
plus, we now have material to mix. So it's constant stuff coming in that we can mix and demonstrate. Most people don't demonstrate the product that they're trying to sell. And like if you've gone to a producer website, they're selling a drum kit and they have no sounds. They don't describe the product. They're not demoing it. So
Yeah.
what music really is a demonstration of the product. Like I'm trying to think of an example here. You've probably heard rappers on their verses talk about how much they charge for a verse.
Uh-huh. Oh, all the time.
Yeah.
You hear 80, you hear 20, you hear 12, you hear 5, and it's like you're drawing those in your own head. Okay, 5K, is it 10K? What is it? Yeah, no, I know exactly what you're talking about. Sure.
Hmm. They only made that song to market a collab. That's the end product. And that's why I kept asking, what's the end product? Most people have to keep asking that question. What is the end product? What's the end product? You have a lot of end products within your business, which is good. And just always keep in mind, how do we incentivize the talent without money? Because that's how you're going to grow the fastest. And it seems like you've grown doing that simply by tying them into you said the streaming revenue was some
Yeah.
piece.
So the artists get that part of that as well. And yeah, and they also, get percentages of the merch they sell. Like they get percentages of the people that they put on. If you put on new artists and bring them for studio hours, that's a benefit directly to you. So we have all the equipment, but you have the ability to then bring people in, and it directly helps you and your streams and your merchandise, and then your rank internally in the label as well. So
Mhm. And it's all a pyramid. It's all based on who's at the top, who's at the bottom. And that's why I keep bringing up the pyramid analogy. The music industry works the same way. Drake can sign artists under him. So there's UMG, Drake, artists under him. It's a pyramid. And when you structure a pyramid, the people at the top have to have the most, what's the word? The most incentive, I guess. So I have a private mastermind full of the top leaders in the producer community. And I'm talking about people who is from Grammys to plaques to millions of sales to real estate, all types of stuff. And the number one thing I've noticed with these guys is that you have to, and I created the group of private mastermind that I forged all the relationships with everybody. And you have to make sure that you don't treat the people at the top the same way you treat the people in the middle, and you treat them different from the people, I'll just say at the bottom, so to speak. And an easy way to understand this is the people at the top get the 70 splits, okay, 70% or more. People in the middle get 50% split. People at the bottom get the 30%. You have to create a structure like that because people have to move towards something. And the people at the top don't want to be treated like the people at the bottom, or else they'll become A players. If they're treated like a C player, become C players. C players want to be A players, so they'll work towards it. And so you have to create a system where they can incrementally work their way up. So without digging into the micro stuff about how people structure that, that's the basic way that you have to structure a company for people to be involved and engaged. Now, for going back to the main question, which is how to get known, it's all about the common interest. What is the common interest? What's that key word that people are looking for or identifying with that is a sub piece of your music? Like if I listened to Lil Wayne back in '08 or whatever year it was when he was trying to be a rock star, his
talking about the tape that Eminem song was on there, "Drop the World." That whole. I know what you're talking about.
Mhm. He was going after another audience in that case. He was going after a common interest of skateboarding, and that was all the imaging you saw was skateboard this, skateboard that. So it's there's a deeper interest underneath the music. It's not just genre. It's also what magazine do they listen to? What did they go to World Star? Did they go to Men's Health? Did they go to Cosmopolitan? What's their thing? Where do they aggregate online? Where do they congregate, online? And just mentally, where do they congregate? And people don't do enough. Okay, so I know I'm saying a lot. The answer is we have to know this person, their motivations. We have to know where they are. We have to know everything about them. And you have to you have to get that through data. And if you don't have data on Facebook analytics, for example, you have to go places where people already are.
Yeah.
Tap into something that's already existing. So all these concepts kind of come back to the same exact thing, but really it's market research. Like, okay, your customer, where do they live?
Mainly in Virginia, I'd say, because we're centralized in Virginia. Sure.
What genre?
Oh, well, yeah, mainly hip hop, R&B, those type of artists.
Who's their favorite artist?
Ooh, that's a big general one. That's span. So that's one thing that we're trying to to kind of dictate about what we do is that we have like the kids that want to be rock stars. We have two kids that want to do like the rock star route, like the Juice World, Ian Dior, Kid Leroy style of music, and then we have kids that are like Gunna, Travis Scott style artists, and then we have like the old Lex Luger, Waka Flocka style artists. So we really span, and we try to hire and get artists that are across all those genre fields, so that we have our feet in all the water. You know, like have our toes in all the water. I guess you could say, and we're trying to like find the one that resonates the most with people, and then that's the one that we go down. Okay, Travis is selling right now. Sure, we'll go down the Travis lane. We can make beats like that without a doubt. I've watched enough Busy Works and Curtis King tutorials to make that sound, that type of sound. So then, yeah, then we go down that way. Or if it's more like Ian Dior and the Juice sound is still selling now, and that's the one that's headlining, that's the artist that we're going to spend the most time on. And it goes into your pyramid structure thing. It's like, okay, if this is the artist that's selling, we're going to build a hierarchy around that. And we're going to focus the most on an artist and build the right A&R guys, the right promoters, the right the right producers, or get the beat makers that make that style of beat the best and put them on with that artist. Because if that's what's selling, then we're going to shift our hierarchy to centralize around a point like that. And you kind of make that the main center of attachment, if that's how it works. You know, if that's what's the best, then that's what we're going to focus on.
Yeah, any wealth coach, they say spread. And that's because everything works on the law of averages. 1,000 toothpicks can pick up one brick. One toothpick cannot hold up a brick.
Mm-hmm.
But if you have a sturdy rock under the brick, it can hold it up, even though the toothpick, you only have three other toothpicks. And what I'm saying is that when you cover your spread with 1,000 toothpicks, like you said, the different pockets, you can then hold up that second layer of the pyramid. Now, if you had only three people in those different pockets, the chances of you holding up that brick and holding your stance are very slim. But if you had one person who's really rocking, like the Travis Scott vibe, I think you said, and then three people who just aren't giving you the results you need, it's okay to cut them for now because that rock is holding up the weight. I forgot all the physical words, but you know what I mean.
I know exactly what you're saying.
The weight of the brick is still held by that one rock. And so people, what I'm trying to give people an applicable thing that they can walk away with here. What was the main question though? Because I lost track.
Well, we were just talking more about like how you grow and how you know in this time with having all your different lanes. Like I have your feet in this water, feet in this water, feet in that water,
Oh,
and
I'm
how
sorry.
you expand in that direction. And what's the word? Where you diversify yourself across the spectrum of genres that stick with what works, that sort of thing.
I was digging into your market research. That's what it was. So I was asking you, okay, where are they from? You said Virginia. I said, what genre? You said hip hop. I said, what's their favorite artist? You named more modern artists for the most part.
Yep.
And then what are their hobbies outside of music? Is it video games? Is it exercise? What's their hobby?
We've got a lot of artists that are really into like the whole anime, like manga scene, and like that sort of style of animation. So that's where we're kind of trying to take our art and trying to take our style, sort of that. I guess you could say that anime, like that feel to it, that Japanese like swag, that sort of stuff.
That's dope. So that's interesting. Because the only person I know doing that is Superstar O, using the anime world and tying that into music production. And then my next question would be, we said where they're located. We said, so Virginia, they're into hip hop. Their favorite artist is like the more modern kids. They want to be rock stars, and they're into anime. Now the question is, where do they get their source of influence? Do they follow influencers, or do they follow a TV show, or do they follow some type of blogging website? And then, so it's a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
But the goal of this is just to map out every little characteristic of the body of the person that we're looking to attract. And then when it comes to writing content, you only target those things because that's what's going to resonate with those people and bond them with you. And on top of that, when you run ads, you have to know these interests because you're going to be wasting money talking to everybody who won't care or resonate with the message.
Very good point. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's the goal, or excuse me, that's the exercise people have to do. You have to know your customer like it's your girl or like it's your brother or whatever. Like
Yeah.
you literally have to know everything about them because what galvanizes those people is a common interest. Your friends, you call them friends because you do something in common. You have a common belief or a common activity. Like how many friends do you keep?
This is a deep question. You're like a philosopher, man. I don't know if you're a beat maker anymore, or if you're a
A
producer,
beat me.
or whatever you are nowadays. You're the production Socrates, is what I consider you right now. But no, very much so. I would say. I'm sorry. What's your question again? It totally phased my mind after you.
Yeah, I'll give you a preface just so I don't put you in a corner here. Is I'm not friends with the same people in high school because we don't do the same things. I don't play Yu-Gi-Oh anymore, So those friends I had, we bonded over our common interest
Oh,
called
that's what your
Yu-Gi-Oh.
question was. Friends. How many friends do I keep? Right.
Yeah.
Well, I guess you could say probably close ones. I'd say like maybe 20, and then
hmm
like extended friends, maybe like 200 or 100.
Okay,
Something like yeah.
that's a lot of folks. So you must have something in common with those 20. What's the thing in common for the majority of the 20? What do you guys do together when you're together?
We all like to have really introspective, deep, or thinking conversations, like kind of like this one, like where we challenge what we know and challenge paths to get better. Those are the people that I enjoy talking to the most. People that have that sort of mindset of growth, that sort of thing. I'd say
So
very
they're
much.
all in different industries?
Yeah, all in different industries. All in, some are going up the traditional route of, like I did college and now I'm working a regular job, but a lot of them are doing that and then exploring and expanding on those ideals, like whether it be like working through a corporation top up, like a Capital One and working their way there. Some in music and plenty in music, some working in machine learning and doing all sorts of crazy, CS and stuff like that. And some of them already have super successful businesses and I'm lucky to know some like millionaires and stuff like that already have successful stuff going for them. So it's really just people that have that sort of mindset of I want to be successful, or I already am successful, or I have a path in which I see myself being successful, and I have a step-by-step plan to get there. Those are the people I consider my friends the most. Someone with a goal and someone with the willingness to even sacrifice their own self and their own, I guess they're not their own set of values, but sacrifice their own sanity to get to that goal. Those are the
Mhm.
people I affiliate with the most.
Oh, no. And can you imagine being around people with a complete opposite mindset? It turns you off. It repulses you. It's a polarity, like when they're negative and complaining and talking about everything wrong. Now, where did you meet these people, though?
See, it's some of them. It's going to play exactly into what the point you're getting at is, because the people that I come across that start to either have had that mindset before, or and then the hand that they're dealt or the decisions they made kind of took away from that and kind of distanced them from it. You slowly disassociate with those sort of individuals, and you gradually attract and bring close to the people that have that similar mindset as you and have that same path in life. So you don't stay with the people that don't have that mindset. You continue with the people and find the people that have that similar one. You kind of I'm not going to say it, but actually I'll say it. The law of attraction, everyone knows that, like, people with that same mindset kind of come together, and people who have that those same ideals group together in general. So absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah, and I asked you where did you find them? Most people find them in school. They find them at a
Sure.
job. There's a common thing at the top, and then there's a micro interest called success thinking. So it's like, hey, we all met in college, but we all think this way, and that's the pyramid that I'm talking about. But also, you mentioned resonating with people. So if I put on blue lenses, glasses with blue lenses, and I look outside, the stuff that's going to stick out the most is blue stuff. And so when we change our perspective, whatever we're seeking for, it shows up. And what I mean by this is, who do you trust the most?
Probably I'd say like my mom. That's like it has to be a mom or maybe my super close best friend, I'd say.
hmm I was going to say people trust themselves
Oh, well,
most.
I see that was a given. That was a step above even two individuals. So
And then we put that trust on other people based on impressions and commonalities and resonances. And so when we see ourselves in other people, that's us putting on the blue lenses and looking for blue in the world. And so when we see blue, it stands out more and we're more pulled towards that thing. So that's the stuff that we have to dig into with our audience. What are those points of resonance that, what are those common interests between us and our audience? That's what creates bonding, literal bonding and affinity, it's called. And then we use that affinity. Okay, so for example, when I buy let's say you're at the Ferrari dealership. This would be my last point, and then I gotta go. But you're at a Ferrari dealership, and you want to buy a Ferrari. Why do you want to buy a Ferrari? What's your guess as to why you would buy one, or why most men would buy a Ferrari?
I would say most people buy it for the flex because they can. I would say it's not because they need a car that is a Ferrari.
Indeed, and in bio they call these wealth signals. Signals that you have excess resources to splurge, meaning you didn't need that for survival. You just throw it away. Oh, did I lose you? Hello? You got me?
I'm back. You hear me? Yep.
Okay, gotcha. And so we call these wealth signals. And if you buy a Ferrari, it's saying that you have an extra $450,000 that's chilling because you just threw it away for this metal thing that just goes fast. Chances are you didn't put your
Ferrari. I guess you don't have a Ferrari or Lamborghini for that reason.
And it's like chances are you didn't spend your last $450,000 to get the Ferrari. You probably had an extra, and so this is a wealth signal. And men usually buy Ferraris not because it's fast, not because the features of a Ferrari. It's because it signals a message.
That's a good point.
And it's supply and demand, and it's rare. So it's a message that can't be faked. In biology, we talk about all this type of stuff of how to fake messages, but this can't be faked for the most part. You don't see fake Ferraris rolling down the street. Okay. And the signal that's being put out is wealth and excess resources. And what do women want? They want progeny. They want their kids to be secure with resources. So men who are buying that Ferrari, the real end goal is to attract a wife that they want. It's not the Ferrari. The Ferrari is a means to an end, which is the wife.
Yeah.
So we have to figure out people's affinity. So that's why I keep talking about resonance. What do people actually want? And when we bond with people, there's this in-betweenness between people. So there's point A, point B, and there's the in-between. The in-between is where all the magic happens. If I'm running down a basketball court, are you familiar with basketball?
Oh, of course. Come on now.
Okay.
I'm not familiar with basketball.
Because I didn't know any other analogy, so I was like, this is better work. No. So in physics, speak physics for a little bit. When you're running down a court, you have to crouch down before you go up into a dunk. And what you're building is that potential energy. When you squat down, there's now, so if I'm going in a flat line and I'm going into the negative, I then have the difference between 0 and wherever I'm going.
Point of reference, potential energy. Absolutely. I get it all. Sure. And now, when you squat, the reference you're getting at is you're bringing the word is elastic potential energy. And then when the springs are then compressed, upon expanding those springs, it's a release and directly converts the elastic potential energy into urban minds, kinetic energy. Correct. Exactly. So.
Oh, Nafi Beats, what's up? I didn't even notice you were in here. My bad. And so, yes. So you said it way more physical. I was just going to say capacity. Yeah. Okay. We're building capacity. And that's what you need. You need to create that draw. That's what romance is. You're building that in-between stuff. You're building a charge, so to speak. And when you bond with people, you need to figure out how to be in between somebody's natural affinity. Sorry to be a little vague here, but point A would be the person. Point B would be their natural thing that they're interested in. You have to figure out a way to get in between so that you can charge a toll. And I'll keep it. This is my last example, I promise. So in biology, on the outside of cells, and I haven't been in biology in so long, but on the outside of cells, you have these things called ions. They hold a charge. You have positive and negative ions. And so the positive stuff wants to attach to the negative stuff because that's how it neutralizes and becomes equal, in equilibrium and balance again. Looks like we lost you.
cut out. I'm back though.
The Wi-Fi tripper?
Yeah, Wi-Fi
Okay.
stripper. Go ahead.
Wi-Fi tripper. So on the outside of a cell, you have positive charges that want to reach the negative charges on the inside of the cell. And when positive meets negative, it's not a bad thing. It creates equilibrium, it creates balance, it creates peace, and it creates harmony. That's what people want. And so the outside of the cell has mechanisms, they're called gates, that charge a toll, a biological toll, like an energetic toll. So for that positive charge to come into the cell, it must go through all these things to exchange something for that thing to come inside the cell. And
Mm.
so our job is to be the cell wall. We just need to be the toll keeper, the person who's charging a toll for people to go from the outside to the inside. And the way we do that is by stimulating somebody's affinity or their desire, the thing they resonate with, their interest. We need to step in between them and their interest and always guide them toward the end goal that they have in mind. Like, again, the guy buying the Ferrari, he really doesn't want the Ferrari. It's a means to an end. And we need to deliver people from where they are, point A, and we have to satisfy them to get closer to point B. And all we do is just charge that fee and be the in-between thing.
That makes perfect sense. And
Yeah.
before you
So
go, I just wanted to say one thing. Um, you're doing a lot of stuff as an artist too, and we really respect that, and we kind of want to draw some attention to that. So I was wondering, and you know, a lot of the people in the chat are as well, like how do you treat yourself, you know, as a business entity, but then also as an artist at the same time? Like those are two very different things, but kind of have an overlap that you can utilize. And you know, built your brand, the brand that you have built online as a as you know, as the leading expert in tutorials and FL Studio, is now collaborating and joining your stream of people that are supporting you as an artist, and you're using that. How was it necessary? Do you think you could have done it the other way? Do you think you could have started as the artist, or how did you allow that, kind of like how Kanye allowed production and being the best producer of his time frame, and then switching into the lane of an artist? Is that kind of what you see yourself kind of doing now?
yeah, and I'm open to collab because I have a new studio where I can do all the stuff that I want to do now. And
Beautiful.
yeah, and the I think it'd be the same because Curtis King took the artist route. He does the same concept as me, but he just applied it to artists at first. I just applied it to producers at first. And at any time I could say, here's how you apply this technique for artists. You know, it's the same stuff. It's like McDonald's. But to answer your question, I think deeper. So when again, the easiest way, guys, in the chat and everybody here, not to be specifically, is think in reverse. So I'm thinking from a result, how do I work backwards? So, okay, let's say I want to sell a mixing course about, let's say I want to sell a package for how to mix and a package full of like sounds. I'll make an entire album detailing the how I've made it. So for example, the show how it's made. Have you heard of it?
I don't think I've watched it before, but the name rings a bell to me.
It's all one big commercial for whatever they're talking about. So like how Coca-Cola is made. When people hear the story behind something, they're more inclined to dig into that thing. It's just a biological thing. We've heard stories for thousands of years. That's how we're programmed. And without digging too deep into that, because I can go way too deep, I'm gonna pause myself. But my point is, I'm working in reverse. I'm saying, okay, I need people to get this new mixing course and need them to get these new sounds. I'm going to make an entire album using only the sounds, giving the stems from the mix from all the projects I did, and I'm going to shoot music videos to demonstrate how cool this stuff is and everything else. And what I'm saying is that I take one thing and I split it up into 12. So when I was shooting my music video, I did product placement. I had another brand, a liquor company actually called Thug Life down in Miami, place his little bottle in a couple scenes. Okay, so that's one thing. We did not a deal, but like an agreement with the modeling agency where I would promote them and they would promote me. And it's a very thought out process of marketing. So you have that leverage. And what else did I have in that video? I'm trying to think. So I could teach people how to shoot the music videos. I can keep the behind the scenes. I can show them the actual music video. I can give them the stems from the project. I can actually put out a song. I can demonstrate all those sounds and how to do it in a tutorial and how to mix it and how I mixed it or whatever. So I'm taking the one thing and I'm guiding people back to the end product, the end result. And I don't think they don't start with the end product and end result. And that's why they're so like trying to figure out stuff because it's like this. Okay, now I know I'm so long-winded, but in business, you have something called a CPL, or cost per lead, or cost per
Yeah,
acquisition, some people call it.
sure. I did door to door. I remember all that sort of stuff.
So good man. And so ultimately your customer, it's called LTV, your lifetime value. So let's say over 6 months, somebody spends 150 bucks with me. I know that when I'm advertising, what's up, Rock City? I know that when I'm advertising, I can spend up to 150 bucks and go even. So my point is, if we don't know our end product, you don't know how much to put in the front end because you don't know how much you're getting in the back end. You don't know that return. So I know, if I'm spending 10 bucks on the front end, I'm 10xing my money on the back end because it
Yeah,
goes from 10 to 150. And people have to know those numbers. You have to start with the end product. If it's just streaming, that's only one profit center. And that's what people with streaming, just keep in mind we're at the bottom of that pyramid. So we're not going
yeah.
to get the lion's share of the revenue. So we have to figure out a way to create our own pyramid. And that's through our own products and our own solutions that we offer and services. So I know I was like all over the place.
No, that makes perfect sense. And see, this is what you're saying right here makes perfect sense because now I can apply that sort of mentality and distill that in every single artist. What's up? What's up, crazy? Crazy baby
Bellamy,
Marlo
I
hopped in. That's one
didn't
of
even
our
know
biggest
you.
artists. But with all of our artists, they all kind of have their own sort of way and unique lane to figure out. But just distilling sort of that sort of knowledge into them, they can grow and kind of expand in that in their own way. And we've got a lot of them tapped in for that reason. Absolutely. So,
Yeah.
I want to just first and foremost, before you head out, thank you for coming in and talking with us and sharing the knowledge. And, we went from all the way from talking about cell biology, physics, and everything in between, the music industry. And it's been an honor. And I honestly am super excited that you've got your own studio now and you built it from scratch. And we are really looking forward to collabing with you at some point and making some
Yep.
big things happen, without a doubt.
Indeed. Yeah, your product is insane. Every time we play your tracks. Yeah, and Bellamy is a perfect example. Shout out to her. So when we worked together, it was not only the music video, it was also how do I help her intentions? How do we leverage all these things to create more things? Unfortunately, the interview's over. The conversation, I'll call it, not an interview, but the conversation's over. But shout out to everybody in the chat. I'm scrolling back up to see everybody who joined. Rock City was here, Nafi was here, Thyrax was here. And who else was up in here? My bad. So yeah, just DM me and we'll figure out, how we're gonna
Absolutely. We
create some
will.
good stuff.
I'm glad, and we look forward to being on your streams whenever you have them up. We'll have Bishaw on there doing his thing, dropping our newest stuff in there, still being a big part of that. So thank you for talking again, and it was a pleasure. Hopefully we chat again sometime soon.
Boom. Good man. And let me give people a tip real quick. One last tip. Sorry, I'm just
Absolutely. I'm here, man. It's you're the one with the time constraint. I'm good.
tipping people. Yeah, I said 30 minutes. This is the whole hour. Uh, what I was gonna say is you're benefiting me in this case. There's an exchange. So you guys have good product. I need good product because I need more products to get to where I need to go. And I have time restraints, so I can't create as many products as possible. So I need other people to help me with the products. That's one thing. So that's the exchange I get. And you're also with this conversation giving me authority and status by making me seem like the big bro, I guess, or like the authority of the conversation. And so that's an intangible thing that you have to offer. So we have to start thinking more intangibles. If you guys want to do more stuff with vertical relationships, what are the intangibles that aren't money that you can give to that person? It's not about their audience necessarily. It's about how you can benefit them specifically. Yeah, this conversation benefited everybody that we, chatted with, but in reality, it benefited me more. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Making sure
anyway,
that everybody's benefiting from the interactions. It's like you were saying, you have a lot of ideas and a lot of things that you have to do. You don't necessarily have time to sit down and mix your own vocals for like 2.5 hours. Like that's not something that maybe you want to do that still, or maybe that's something you do, but now it's like if you have relationships across the board of people that you trust to mix your vocals good, or people that are going to send you a beat that's your style, or all those sorts of things, that's now lanes which you can expand and not have to essentially spend your time on as much anymore, because you can instead, okay, I know I've got to do the Hermes marketing campaign still, this and that, And that's something that you can spend your conscious time on. So I see exactly what you're saying. Networking, resources, and contact. Exactly right. Exactly right.
Good man. Shout out to Bell, man. She got me cheesing over here. But shout out to everybody else. I really enjoyed this combo. So again, I wasn't expecting to rock with you this long. Usually I keep stuff short because I don't, we never had a conversation before here, but you were such a good resonance with what we were doing that it was natural. So I appreciate you, everybody here. B Shaw's in the chat. And yeah, and I'll help you as much as I can. So there it is.
All right. Take care. Thanks so much for joining us, everyone. I appreciate it.
Much love, man.
Have a
Peace
good
out.
weekend. Have a good weekend and enjoy.
See you guys.
Thanks, everyone, for joining. This has been awesome. Learned a lot. Everyone, check out our artists: Crazy Baby Marlowe, Ty Bam. We got LaPlow, we got Young Pops, and we've got a label album dropping on December 4th. We've got that going crazy. We've got a 6 song, and then we got another part dropping on the 18th. It's going to be really, really big, guys, and I appreciate all the support and all the and everybody signing in.